863. That's 866-404-FOOD.
Introducing the new Go Berkey Kit, a first-of-its-kind, personal, practical, and portable water purification system for those on the go. As you know, we discontinued the Mini Berkey with ceramic elements several years ago because the output of the filtered water was a meager pint per hour. The new Go Berkey system has an amazing output of about a gallon an hour. Each Go Berkey kit includes a 1-quart high-quality 304 stainless steel system, complete with a black Berkey purification element, a generic sport water bottle, and a nylon carrying case. The whole kit weighs a mere 2.4 pounds. With an expected element life of around 3,000 gallons, you can refill the Go Berkey system up to an incredible 12,000 times before needing to replace the element. The new Go Berkey kit is perfect for backpacking, emergency packs, bug-out bags, international travel, car emergency kits, your desk at work, and much more. Get your Go Berkey kit today by calling 888-803-4438. That's 888-803-4438. Or visit us on the web at berkeywater.com. Sorry, not yet available in Iowa.
Question. Have you noticed foods not really being all that healthy anymore? Have you noticed there is something going on that seems to be taking the nutrients out of our food? We seem to have a lot of genetically modified products, and it seems that sugar is added into everything that we eat. What if you could have something that was totally natural, and that if you drank it every day, your body would start to cleanse? You would feel better, you would have more energy, and you would watch your health change for the good. Well, there is such a product. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's heading America by storm. And if you have not tried this great tasting tea and see how it works, I would just ask you, what are you waiting for? Do yourself a favor. Order this tea and just try it. Here's how you get it. GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Or you can call us at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. Order now.
You're listening to The Micro Effect.
Colorado Channel. This is a Class 1 emergency. All civilian traffic is barred from streets and highways. Stay in your homes. Stay in your homes. Those found without specific military orders are subject to summary execution. Stay in your homes. Repeat, Colorado Channel. This is a Class 1 emergency. All civilian traffic is barred from streets and highways.
The Micro Effect.
Please destroy this recording by the usual method.
And welcome, everyone. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I welcome you all. And last night we took a little break, so we ran a rebroadcast of Dr. Brooks Agnew's show with us. And Sterling Allen actually has been rescheduled for later on next month, and you're going to really enjoy him. Again, this evening, we have two wonderful guests. First hour, we have Dr. Christine Page, author of 2012 and the Galactic Center. And then we have second hour, RUBEN URIARTE, which has written a book called The Other Roswell. So stick with us, everybody. Right now, we have Paul Landris, our news correspondent, with the news. He'll be up in just a second. Stick with us. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show.
This is Paul Landris with the Whole Agenda Radio Show, broadcasting to you live on the Micro Effect Network. Satellite battleground in space. Space has long been a battleground for disputes between the United States and its rivals. Experts point to a growing number of suspicious incidents that have occurred to satellites in the past few years. In 2007, China fired a missile against one of its defunct weather satellites, blowing it up and creating a huge debris field that menaces other nations' satellites. In January 2010, there was another collision of a Chinese missile and a satellite. And in August 2010, China figured out how to bump two of their satellites together without destroying them, a potential dress rehearsal for satellite hunter-killer technology. While some incidents involve the Chinese disabling their own space vehicles, the latest information about the loss of NASA's satellites is more worrisome. Experts say we shouldn't be too surprised that China is testing U.S. capabilities in orbit. Such probes are a routine occurrence, but are often not made public. Communications from the ground to most U.S. military satellites are encrypted. Earlier satellites, however, such as the ones operated by NASA, may be using outdated security measures. Interference with NASA satellites could come from other nations besides China, or it could come from private individuals. If China is fingered as the culprit, should the U.S. retaliate? If there is proof, yes, it should be discouraged through escalating steps, but we are a long way from that. To deter such attacks or probes or incidents, the Pentagon has recently set up a Joint Space Protection Program, JSPP. National Reconnaissance Officer Director Bruce Carlson said the JSPP is trying to figure out how to differentiate between attacks and accidents in space. I don't think it's any secret that the Chinese are becoming more active in space, and that concerns us because we're not absolutely sure of their intent. But truth be told, U.S. officials are probably well aware of China's intentions in space. The Chinese plan to attack our space assets in the event of a conflict. They also plan to attack our carriers and maybe critical infrastructures. It's pretty basic stuff. Militaries plan to fight their opponents, so it's hard to be too indignant. Anonymous to release names. Anonymous's chain-smoking collaborator, Barrett Brown, insists that the previously canceled Operation Cartel is most definitely a go. And the whole danger of getting people killed? That's old hat for the hacktivists. Often erroneously referred to as the collective spokesperson or former spokesperson, Brown says he's been in touch with the anonymous members leading the operation, who have decided to release a catch of over 60 names of people who have collaborated with the notoriously brutal Zetas cartel in Mexico, and they will do this on November 5th. While he brushes off any official role, Brown has been the public face since early 2010 and has represented the organization accurately in past exploits. Operation Cartel was initially canceled, but the decision was made without the input of everyone involved, Brown said. After it was canceled, we got to talking about it, and the video got a whole lot of views. Members of Anonymous had a vote amongst themselves and decided to go ahead. Brown says the release is mostly made up of Mexicans with ties to the Zetas cartel. There is one United States District Attorney on the list, however. The DA has worked with another organized crime outfit that may or may not be peripheral to the Zetas. Operation Cartel will go grisly, he said. After the release, Brown says the cartels will probably kill most of the people unmasked by Anonymous. Hundreds of seemingly drunk parrots are falling out of trees and the sky in a northern Australian town, mystifying veterinary surgeons who are struggling to care for them. The brightly colored lorikeets are showing classic signs of drunkenness by losing all their coordination, passing out, and then cowering in cages as they recover from their hangovers. They definitely seem like they're drunk, said Lisa Hansen, a veterinary surgeon at the Ark Animal Hospital in Palmerston near Darwin. They fall out of the trees, they go out to jump, and they miss the next perch. They have even been seen on the ground trying to walk, but they weave and stagger all over the place. Hansen said nobody was sure what was causing the symptoms, although it may be a plant they are eating. Other theories include an outbreak of a mysterious virus. She said the hospital was caring for about 30 birds at a time, with 8 arriving each day after being scooped up from lawns and roadsides. The birds are given sweetened porridge and fresh fruit. This is the avian version of hangover food. They sit on the floor of the cage and rest their heads on their side, or they curl up in the corner and hide under the paper and block the rest of the world out. Hansen said drunk lorikeets have been seen there previously, but never in such numbers, adding that the birds can die without proper care. Now that is some serious drinking. Well, it was like a shark feeding frenzy when the Mexican Navy showed up. They had been informed about packages floating in the Pacific Ocean near the resort town of Cabo San Lucas and went to investigate. When they showed up, all shapes and sizes of personal boats were there, and the people in them grabbing the packages and hauling them aboard. Seems these packages were bales of marijuana. What had happened was some friends were out water skiing, came across the floating packages. They told their friend, who in turn told another friend, who told another, etc. And then the green rush was on. People were literally rowing out to where the packages were. The Mexican Navy, after chasing all the boaters away, mounted a search in the ocean and on the beaches around Cabo. They have found so far 178 packages of marijuana weighing more than 2 tons. The Navy statement does not speculate on the origin of the packages. And then finally, word phrase of the day, in keeping with the Halloween theme, this just happened. Word phrase of the day, a Freddy Cougar. A Freddy Cougar is the old chick who totally rocks her trampy Halloween costume. When used in a sentence, did you see that Freddy Cougar all over that poor kitten? He stood no chance. Well, that's it for me tonight. This has been Paul Landers for the Whole Agenda Radio Show. Rob will be right up with tonight's special guest. Thank you and good night.
And welcome back, everybody. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show, and I'm your host, Robert Pepino. And this evening, for the first hour, we have Dr. Christina Page. Christina Page is known as the mystical physician. Dr. Christina Page was immersed in spiritual mysteries from an early age. Raised amongst healers and psychics, and always connected intuitively to other realms of consciousness. In his search for true healing, she has over 30 years of experience in the caring profession as doctor and homeopath, receiving her medical degree from London University. Now focusing on education, she is a gifted intuitive, mystic, and alchemist, sharing her insights and knowledge through teaching, soul reading, and writing. As an international speaker, she sees herself as a messenger and bridge builder between different worlds, whether this includes modalities of healthcare or levels of consciousness. Author of 6 books, the best known being Frontiers of Health, and her latest, 2012 and the Galactic Center, The Return of the Great Mother, was published in October 2008. Dr. Christina Page, welcome to the program. I'm so happy to have you with us.
Lovely to be with you, Robert. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Quite the history of your knowledge of healing and mysticism and alchemy. I mean, I was starting to read a little bit during the week, and I'm sorry I didn't get to read deeper into your profile, but it's quite interesting that right now we are going through such tumultuous times. And back in, I believe, 2008, you wrote the book 2012 and the Galactic Center, and we are seeing such changes right now, such frequency shifts within all of humanity. It is quite amazing to me. And the gifts of healing from people like yourself, I think, are more pertinent now than they ever have been, because people are going through such shifts, and I don't really think they understand what's really happening to them.
Exactly. I think, we've talked about this. I mean, any of us who wrote the books, and I've spoken about this for several years, and we spoke about this great shift that was going to hit us. And I know I can remember people saying, well, what if nothing happens? And I had to say, well, I think something's going to happen because the shift is really to bring us in alignment to our spiritual knowingness, our consciousness. And when someone said to me, what if nothing happens? I had to answer, well, if this is the best we can be as spiritual human beings, then I think we have a problem. And I think that what is happening now is bringing us into alignment in a global way to what it is to be a spiritual human being.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, spirituality is really coming into and of itself, and this has nothing to do with religion. This is pure spirituality, the rising and frequency shifting of our mental capacity and our soul conscious mind to reach another level. I feel that we are actually probably going to achieve some sort of type 1 civilization, and we can, get rid of all these wars and killings and these just greedy behaviors of people in general on this planet, to where we can all have some sort of life of wellness and health without the greed factor.
Absolutely, I agree. There's a couple of things that we know that is happening, and of course we all know about the Mayan calendar and the end of it, but of course the Mayans weren't the only people who talked about this change, and everybody who I've spoken to from indigenous perspectives have all said this is a time of us reaching a place of unity through diversity, where we have an acceptance of other people's ways, but that brings it together in a unified field. And I think that's what we're looking at, is we don't all have to be the same, but we do have to start to respect each other and in there, not be greedy, because greed is really not respecting somebody else. It's about me, myself, and I, and it's about, we are being forced to say we cannot exist on our own. We now have to reach out to other people, and we have to appreciate their ways as much as we appreciate our own. And I think this is certainly what we are starting to see take place.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And the way of the old with the monarchy really is, I believe, is starting to fade away. I mean, this nonsense of having a king or a queen or a president. I mean, it all reduces down to the same thing, that for some reason we are so ignorant that we all need a leader to lead us. And believe me, Christina, my view on this is they couldn't lead me across the street.
Well, I agree with you. And, this has been, however far back, but of course is what you're talking about is this hierarchical system. And it's very much been tied into our fact that we're in the Piscean age. And just like fish, there's one fish at the front and everybody else follows. And it's a complex situation. I know myself as a doctor, there are always discussions as to whether or not a doctor takes the power from a patient, and I think there is a huge aspect of that, certainly in medicine. But there's also the part when we as doctors say to the patient, well, do you want to make the choices in your health? And they'll say, no, you take the choices, and we'll go along with it. But when something goes wrong, then you can be blamed for it. And I think that one of the things that is really happening now, Robert, is no, we don't want to follow a leader or follow a messiah or follow a guru, but we're also being asked to be accountable for our own actions. And that's a whole new ball game for us, because we've been much more comfortable when we could point a finger at somebody else.
Oh, God, you are so right.
Yes.
Go ahead, please continue.
No, I was just wanting to say, I mean, this is a big shift, and when you and I spoke of spirituality, as you said, this isn't religion. This is about taking ownership of the power of being a divine and creative being, and that, to me, is a huge aspect of our spiritual makeup.
100%. You really hit the nail on the head by saying taking ownership of your own responsibility. How many people have neglected taking responsibilities for their own actions throughout the centuries? And I think everything is coming through to a fruition right now.
Right. And I think, we know that astrologically, for instance, that Uranus, the planet of sudden change and rebellion, going through Aries for the next 7 years, is really evoking all these revolutions and rebellions, which we all admire that people are standing up. But we don't want to just replace one leader with another leader. This is a time for people to really stand up and say, I am willing to take that responsibility. And I'm not necessarily hearing that in the spokesman that I'm listening to with all these different rebellion and occupying groups.
Oh, 100%. You're 100% right. And I would say this, that we should return to, or not return, but actually shift into an age of wisdom, because it should be the wisest people on the planet to dole out any kind of say-so to the rest of humanity, only for humanity's good and not for its destruction. But we have constantly been manipulated and the truth distorted in order for these manipulators at the top to continue this gigantic illusion that has been created planetarily.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as you know, this is a time that the indigenous speak about the falling of the veils, the real meaning of the apocalypse, as you know, which is those things that have been hidden to the many are now going to be revealed to everybody. And I think this revelation, this sense of nothing to be hidden anymore, and an authenticity towards those that we expect to be authentic and open, is really the shift that's taking place. And I think authenticity is a challenge to those who would rather stay in the shadows while manipulating as puppeteers the people. So I think this is also going to be revealed.
Oh, how right you are! I will revel in that day when that finally happens. Personally,
right. And I think this country, more than I have to say most, there are some wonderful paradoxes. I was watching a program last night about the freedom of information, except if it's classified. And you think, well, when is it classified? It's classified when someone doesn't want us to know it.
Right.
Well, there is no freedom of information.
Right, and whatever freedom of information they want to release is so old that they figure let them have it because it means nothing to us at this point.
Exactly. So I think, we want to believe in this country that we have freedom of speech, information. But I think America is waking up to the fact that an awful lot of things are hidden, and often hidden for what is said to be our own good. And I feel now things are changing, that if we are to have things revealed to us, we also have to be mature enough to deal with what is coming up.
I agree.
Decisions.
I agree. But, it also, to the matter of fact, is that what do they think we are, children? We are so immature as individuals that we cannot make decisions for ourselves. That's the most disturbing part of it.
It is. Unfortunately, we watch, if I watch television, I watch some of the advertisements, I think, are you really thinking that I'm so stupid that I would go and buy that? And yet, of course, they must get people to buy it, otherwise they wouldn't have the advertisement.
Right.
And so there is this mind control that's going on that isn't, that people fall into an easiness about life. Anything that's not going to disturb them, they'll do.
No, you're 100% right. And the magic trick, I think, is finally coming to an end. The magician is going to reveal his dastardly deeds, and I think this is the overall matrix that's being unveiled right now, and this is why you're seeing worldwide this movement. And it really did start in the Middle East, and then it's come here, and now it's breaking open worldwide because America has always been seen as a leader, though I think we have become the biggest terrorists on the planet.
Right, right. I feel that you're absolutely right. This is a breaking open. My guidance several years ago said, however, be careful of the magicians, because as the veils between the dimensions are falling, as things are being revealed, there are those who know that they can use that power of magic at this time. It's as if we're all seeking the mysteries and the phenomena. And I know that I've watched people step up as magicians, and people around them have not necessarily noticed that they're giving their power to those magicians. So, in other words, as people get more frightened by the changes that are taking place, it's very easy for us to grasp onto somebody who seems to know the way or the answer. And I feel that we're in for interesting times, and the only person we can really trust is ourselves. And that's not to say we shouldn't trust others, but we have to learn to trust ourselves, as you say, and not act as children in this.
Oh, you're 100% right. But what I would say is the trust comes with knowing, evaluation, and taking care. Like speaking with people like yourself, Christina, I can see where the trust would be very easy to have, because when one speaks the truth, there's nothing behind that. When these magicians speak, they hide all the truths behind their magic curtain.
Yes, yes, and often offer the things that the Piscean age has about it. They offer elitism, they offer specialness, they offer you can have these tricks as well as I can as long as you do X, Y, and Z, and usually it costs money along the way.
Right.
And I say to people, the person you're wanting to follow is the person who teaches you to be your own teacher or teaches you to be your own healer. And if somebody isn't doing that, then they're playing the old games.
Very well put. And also, now, especially at this time, I believe the old adage says, when the student readies, the teacher will appear. I believe that's really happening right now for the majority of the planet. And the old world order really has no more leg to stand on because they've run out of magic tricks.
You're right. You're right. I really believe that. And recently I've just finished a book on women because I had a hunch that women have somehow lost or forgotten their own sacred identity. And one of the things that came out of that was how the women, and especially those who were grandmothers, were obviously chosen via the Iroquois Constitution and other constitutions to be the wisdom keepers, as well as those who brought forward the information and the inspiration. And it was said that women were used because they knew what was worth fighting for. They knew what it was like to suckle a child and then to bury them after a war. And I feel that, for my part as a woman, it is time that women also return to their sacred role of being able to listen in and be the family or the community wise keeper. And I would love to see that change take place.
Well, I agree with you. And I've always felt that the woman is the backbone of a family, of a community, of a country, because without women, this, and I'm not just saying this, to be bragful in any way. I think women are, when it comes to intuition and thinking things through logically, I think women are much more superior at a very young age, and they see things exactly for what they are, where men are deluded into believing something that is told to them, which might not necessarily be true, but the greed instinct wants them to pursue that, whether it's wrong or right.
Well, I don't want to put men down in any way, but I do know that women have much more of a connection mentally in other ways. We know the brain in women is connected much more to community, where in men it's more connected to individuality. And I think when we come to what is best for a community, a family, as you say, it is women who make the better decisions. And wow, what a difference our world would be if it was only women that made decisions. They could vote.
I wouldn't mind it at all, believe me.
I've heard many men would say that. I think that it's just there's a clarity needed at this time. And I feel that for our young people, there is also a need for clear role models. And I think that's amongst men and women. These young people, we see them very alert, and they're very much more in tune with the spiritual world, but they also need a very strong support. And I feel, certainly I'm concerned about some of our teenagers and young people who are finding that they haven't got that foundation that we all need to see them into bringing this new world in, because they are our future.
You're absolutely right, and it's guidance. That's what's lacking, especially here in the United States. But Christina, we're coming up on a break here, so everybody stick with us. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, and you are listening to Dr. Christina Page, and we will be right back after this break.
It's hard to imagine when things are going reasonably well just how quickly things can change. But what would it take? Economic collapse? Massive crop failure? Chemical or biological attack? So many situations could find you in the grocery looking to pick up food for your family only to find that the shelves are empty. There's nothing. Don't let that happen. Act today to make sure that if it ever comes to that, you and your family will be provided for. Visit freezedryguy.com to look at the wide variety of survival foods available. Freeze-dried foods from the Freeze Dry Guy store longer, rehydrate faster, are nutritionally superior to, and taste better than any other long-term storage food available. Visit freezedryguy.com or call toll-free 866-404-3663. freezedryguy.com.
Okay, I want to address the skeptics listening to talk radio. You hear multiple commercials on products that make you feel better and help you lose weight, but you don't believe it. Companies come and go. Well, people, I understand. You really are desiring a product that works, but you're tired of getting burned with substandard quality, gimmicks, and 3 to 6 month get-involved contracts. Life Change Tea is different. I speak for Life Change Tea because I lost 25 pounds, lowered my blood pressure, and blood sugar levels. I sleep well at night, knowing Life Change Tea customers are receiving a real product that works, customer service, and customer satisfaction. So here's my spiel. Test us, try us, and receive results. And if you don't try us, that's okay. And if you do, you'll be a happy tea customer getting healthy. So order now. Call us at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. Or you can log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. In my opinion, you won't be sorry.
Now you can feel that squeaky clean sensation like none other with Vitamer toothpaste and mouthwash. Vitamer toothpaste and mouthwash is a unique natural formula not found in any other oral care products. With a gentle combination of zinc, folic acid, myrrh, and clove oil, Vitamer effectively whitens teeth, removes plaque, and freshens breath, and it does it naturally without any harmful chemicals. Visit us online at Vitamer.com. That's VITAMYR.com. Or call us today to place your order at 1-888-558-8482. That's 1-888-558-8482. 8482. Keep your teeth and gums healthy with Vitamer toothpaste and mouthwash. Vitamer, nature's answer to healthy teeth and gums. And remember, it's all completely natural. Available at participating health food stores nationwide.
Concerned about the quality of water your family is drinking?
BerkeyWater.com.
Concerned about the price and quality of bottled water?
BerkeyWater.com.
Concerned about natural and or man-made contaminants in your water?
BerkeyWater.com.
That's BerkeyWater.com. Or call 888-803-4438.
That's 888-803-4438.
Berkey, because the water you drink may not be as clean as you think.
Micro effect.
With all that this great land has given us, shouldn't we think about giving back just a little?
She's right. I'm going to renounce my citizenship.
Stay tuned to the Micro Effect Broadcasting Network.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show, and I'm your host, Robert Pepino. And you have been listening to Dr. Christine Page, who actually wrote the book in 2008, 2012, in the Galactic Center, with a list of credentials a mile long through a noted career. And for anybody who'd like to call into the broadcast to speak with Dr. Page, the number is 1-888-747-1968. You can ask her any question related to these topics. Please call in. And Dr. Page, the one thing I wanted to touch on this side of the break is there are physical changes now really taking place on this planet. And this is one thing I've been following for quite a while. The frequency and shift in earthquakes have changed drastically. Sinkholes that have opened up worldwide, just incredible stuff. I mean, I watched a video of a whole port in South America, an entire port, actually fall into the ocean. We've had drastic weather changes, some of the coldest winters up to date today, which have actually never been measured before. So I think there's, I said earlier in your bio, there is a duality definitely going on between planet and the human species.
Yes. I'm very interested in what you're saying. I've just got this idea of this huge sinkhole that you're talking about. There's certainly, I think we've all moved beyond the idea that this is a global warming experience. We know that there is a climate change. As far as, again, the Maoris and others would say, is that the Earth is a living being and that she, too, is going through the transformations that we're going through. And so that many of the things that we're seeing as far as the earthquakes and volcanoes and other things are her shift in consciousness. And that certainly makes great sense to me. I think also we know that we have being affected by the sun, but the sun's effects are very unusual. You know, for a few years back we had those very quiet days years when there were no sunspots at all, and now we're coming back to a time of high activity. But we also know that every planet around us is going through changes. There are melting ice caps on Mars. So we're also thinking that maybe there is something much larger that is happening, and this is why I wrote the book, The 2012 and the Galactic Center, that, of course, with the alignment on 2012, or December 21st, 2012, we are wondering whether or not this alignment with the Galactic Center, which is we're closer to the Galactic Center than we've been for 26,000 years, could this be that something happened in the Galactic Center 26,000 years ago, and we're only now getting the effects of it at this time? And I think this is bringing us to being much more aware of our cosmic, our galactic relationship. And this is good for us as humans, because as we broaden our awareness beyond just the Earth, and we say, okay, maybe we are part of this grand universe and part of this galaxy, it allows us to step outside our smallness and really embrace all that we are at this time.
Very well put, very well said, and I actually tend to agree with most of what you said. In fact, probably all of it. And I've stated this on this show many times. The physical evidence exists throughout our whole solar system. The planets have heated up, and scientists have stated that we're going through a super solar cycle, which hasn't been seen in our lifetimes. And with the drastic winters and the massive flooding that's taking place, Mother Earth is cleansing herself, and we have to shift with her because we are biologically tied to her arrhythmia, her frequency.
Absolutely. And, in my work, I'm finding myself saying to people, the one way of going through these times is connect to the earth, just what you're saying. And I hear more and more of us are, growing our own vegetables, working in the garden, even just standing on Mother Earth, because it is her that's going to, by being in tune with her, we are going to ride these waves much more easily. And for my own part, because of being a doctor, I'm also saying to people, get into your body, because the body contains all the elements that make up the earth. So our body is a small piece of earth that we walk around in. And for that, I speak to people and say, you might find that your meditative practices when you used to go out of your body no longer are working for you, that you now need to meditate into your body and be more present, perhaps even changing diet and allowing yourself to just go with what your body is wanting you to do. Maybe it wants you to sleep. Maybe it wants you to go out biking. But more when you're in tune with your body, you're in tune with the earth, and as you said, in tune then with the cycles of change that we're going through.
Well, you just brought up on a very good point, because I find myself, and this actually never happened to me, and this only actually really started happening recently, probably within the last 3 to 4 weeks, where I find myself now in the day, and I'm fairly young. I'm 45 years old, so this shouldn't be happening. But I find myself sometimes late morning, and then sometimes mid-afternoon, I cannot keep my eyes open, and I have to go to sleep.
Yep, I've done the same. I'm a little older, but it's not my age, and I'm just really I've learned to, if this is what I need, go and do it. And it might just be a 5-minute, and I'm not even going to call it a power nap, but sometimes I can just drift in and cleanse my thinking, and I'm back out there again. But it works for us, and I think this is our bodies saying, forget what you've been told you have to do. Go back in tune. And I've heard people who have been vegetarians all their life suddenly starting eating meat, while other people have said, look, I mean, personally, I've not been able to take alcohol for a while because it gives me headaches. And I think we've just got to listen now to the body.
I tend to agree exactly what you're saying. I mean, I also think that but beyond the listening, you're going to have to do it regardless whether you listen or not, because we are here on this planet, and
Yes.
It is pulling us that way.
Yes, I think I'm just saying is, our heads are often so full of what we should and shouldn't do.
Yes.
And that is why I'm saying listening, because many a time we say, well, I shouldn't be going to sleep in the afternoon, and yet it's just saying, go beyond that and listen to what your body's saying.
Right.
And you're going to go that way anyway, because there's no way that you can avoid.
So don't fight it.
That's right. That's right. And it's healthy, because the body really does know what's going on, even if it's feeling the differences in temperatures, the differences in pressures, the different frequencies. You spoke about frequencies. What I've been looking at, and I'm sure it's similar, is, as I keep saying, these veils are falling between the dimensions, so that when I used to be able to go to sleep and then say, okay, now I'm in my dream state, and then when I wake up, I'm in another state. What I was finding a couple of years ago, that I couldn't work out if I was asleep or awake, because the differences now are becoming far less obvious. And so what I've been watching is how we're having to really be aware that these higher frequencies, it's as if we were perhaps only tuning into 10 radio stations. Now we're tuning into thousands of radio stations, and we're needing to actually find an ability to actually, first of all, tune out to those that aren't necessary, but also find a way of staying fully grounded on this earth. And that is through the body. It is through living with the earth.
Very well stated. I completely agree with you. And here's another thing. Now that we have this massive movement taking place worldwide, and it's mostly the younger generations, in their mid-20s to probably late 30s,
right,
that they're waking up to this unreality. Okay,
right.
Because it is an unreality, and they finally realize what reality really is to the unreality that's being created.
Right.
How do you think these young people are going to fare through all this massive change that takes place? Because in the reality of it, it is a physical change and it is a mental change. But the physical part, what they're experiencing mentally and what they're doing physically, is going to be so overwhelming for them when it reaches its pinnacle or the precipice. I wonder how all these kids are going to fare out through all this.
Well, and I, say that the majority are going to fare well, and I'm saying that because they are young. They've got that enthusiasm of a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old. Maybe they haven't got the cynicism of us as we get older. So they've got that belief that things are possible. Thank goodness for that. But at the same time, they are not, as I said earlier, one problem is they can't necessarily look up to our generation and beyond and say, well, they've got the way, because there is nothing ahead of them. Nobody's been there before. So they are carving a new path. And this new path is a world that is going to exist for the next 26,000 years. So they are really carving a path that we haven't seen before. I do know that a number of them, and I speak to them, are having issues with anxiety, are having issues with emotional overload, and I'm not always sure whether or not the increased use of computers, etc., is always helping them, because we are seeing more social isolation, even though that there is Facebook and other things. This isn't necessarily giving them face-to-face contact, and that is, we know, is essential for keeping us well grounded on this earth. So I have great faith in these youngsters, but I think that we need to not be complacent, and we certainly need to help them with and guide them in ways of, I think, community and social interaction, not letting them become isolated, because that is when they're have a greater tendency towards, unfortunately, mental disease, mental illness, and I wouldn't want that to happen.
Right, and I agree with you. I would not want that to happen at all. They have their whole lives in front of them, and hopefully they will fare this out well.
Yes.
But the other side of it is this, that when this economic collapse finally actually collapses, how many people in general do you think are going to be able to actually deal with it? Because it's going to be a new paradigm shift, complete with a complete overhaul of our mental stability, our ability to cope with what we've known for so long. Now is completely blown apart because it's all been an untruth. We've all discovered the reality of the lies.
Right. I mean, we understand. Well, maybe I'm just trying to get my head around this. So we're really talking about, of course, a fall of the major financial institutions that have been just propped up. But there will be always a system of, whether we call it a bartering system or some form of payment for whatever we're getting, i.e., there will always be an exchange of energy. And I think we should not be saying that there will not be some sort of an exchange of energy for services or for goods.
Well, I would say there would definitely be an exchange of calories.
Of
calories.
Yes, yes. I'm saying is that we're not going to lose the talents and any of it. Everybody's got gifts and talents. And so what I'm going to be doing, say, is sharing with you a talent. I'll share my talent and you will share something back with me. There will have to be that exchange of energy.
Right.
And what has got out of balance, I would say, yes, there has been a greed on the part of many institutions, but the credit card crunch came when we were believing that we had a right to have something that we couldn't afford. And so really what I'm saying is if you have nothing to exchange with me, then probably I may have nothing to exchange with you. And I think we got out of balance when we said to people, it's okay if you've got nothing, you still can have blah, blah, blah. And I think that this is certainly the discussion that is going on in this country with how much do we offer social support for people who haven't got anything to offer, and how much are we promising them something that they can never repay?
Well, money created out of thin air with real interest paid back can never be paid back, and hence comes the form of slavery.
Exactly. So I have to say, Robert, I have no answer for that because I'm not going to suggest that I think that people, on some level, I would not want to say that I would not take care of somebody who had nothing. But there is a point where that is, as we all know, it's no good giving people fish. You need to teach them how to fish.
Right.
And we are getting to that point. Is there a point where we are really trying to teach them how to fish? I suggest that a lot of our social engineering is really trying to keep them poor and keep them disempowered by keep giving them money that they actually would rather need. It'd be better if we taught them how to fish.
You are 100% right, Dr. Page. I'm on board with you on that as a whole. I fear, I'm just looking at this as realistically as I possibly could, because we're facing so many challenges. We're looking at the physical change on the planet. We're looking at the spiritual and mental and physical change of our bodies, which we have already expressed, yourself and myself, going through actual physical changes. And yet on top of that, I think these elitists, these powers that be, or the old world order, realize that, and I think they're also trying to take advantage of that at the same time. And I believe that their failure comes through their greed of this control structure that they have created. I believe it's collapsing in on itself, and I've stated on the show with other guests that what they've created they have no longer control of.
Right. Oh, I agree with you. I agree very much. And I think that's inevitable. We could just say that's inevitable. That is collapsing. And as you are saying to me and asking me, what's the next step almost? And I think we're all wondering what would happen when that collapse happens. I have no doubt that humanity has a tremendous capacity to explore and revitalize itself and be creative. And I suppose I'm just wanting to keep that out there, because I feel that when these other systems collapse, humanity is actually going to see that it's far more powerful than it first thought. I don't see it collapsing into, oh my God, what's going to happen? I think we've been kept down, we've been kept small, we've been kept disempowered. And when those systems aren't there, humanity will become more ingenious, more creative. I accept there will be times, however, in the middle when, through fear, there will be probably more people seeking, let's say, more stealing. We're going to see that happening. But if we can encourage everybody to say, don't look outside for what your needs are. You've got them inside you. Build on what's inside you rather than needing to go and steal it from somebody else.
You're 100% right. What you give is what you get. If you give, you will receive. If you take, those will take from you. Those are very old and ancient and very wise and very poignant proverbs.
I feel so, and the more I think we encourage each other to be all that we are, and I truly don't believe we're using half of what we are, that is the power that we have, and the more that we have that, the less we need to take from somebody else. Because it's inside us, we say, well, I can do this. This is my gift. And that's what I would love to see encouraged, especially amongst the young people.
Oh, you are so right, Dr. Page. And I would want and wish and hope and in my heart believe it will happen. But again, there's always the duality to it all. And there's going to be a lot of suffering before the healing can begin. And I think, and that's the problem with what these monsters have created, a super depression to hurt people so badly that they actually believe that their new world order and their one monetary system and a total system of tyrannical control will exist. And I believe that they are facing the exact opposite because they have created their own duality for themselves to fail.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel that, one of the things I was writing about in my new book was this whole polarization that has been created, and polarization is really the greatest challenge to us. And I would just say to anybody listening, when you hear this polarization being set up, recognize that this is this old world order, because we've ended up fighting each other when we didn't need to fight each other. That was all set up in order to keep us in that powerlessness, that confusion state. And obviously we have an election coming up next year, which is going to be very interesting, but my goodness, would I like to see the end of this polarization. It's not that I don't believe in healthy competition, but we have to recognize who's pulling the strings here to make us feel angry and projecting our anger onto other people.
Right. Well, I think Rockefeller said that the competition was a sin, if you can imagine that, right?
Oh, I know.
Well, Dr. Page, we're coming up at the end of the hour here, and I want you to give out your information where they can find your books, your new book that's coming out, and hopefully you will come back onto the show, grace us with your presence once again once you have published and put out your new book.
Thank you so much, Robert. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. And my details are, my website is Christine, CHRISTINE, Page, PAGE.com, nice and easy. And if anybody wants to contact me or look at our store, all my books and CDs are on there, old talks. They are welcome to see what where I'm teaching and what my events are in the future.
And when is your new book coming out?
Well, it will be September of next year.
Okay.
September 2012, yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. And I'd definitely love to have you back on the show. You've been enlightening. Brilliant person you are. And I've really enjoyed this conversation, Dr. Page. Oh,
it's been a real pleasure. I feel very passionate and fired up speaking with you, Robert. It's wonderful.
Same here.
All the very best.
Well, you take care of yourself, and we will see you when your new book is published, and I will truly enjoy speaking with you once again. I want you to have a wonderful rest of the week.
Same to you. All the very best. And thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Dr. Page. Bye-bye. And everyone, that was Dr. Christina Page, and I encourage everybody to go to her website. It's extensive. She has a lot of information. There are, of course, also other radio interviews on her website, and of course her books are already available for you to purchase and read. She's an incredible person with a wealth of information. I encourage you to go to her website and read her books and enlighten yourself. So everybody stick with us. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, and coming up this second hour, we have Ruben Urarte, and you will hear all about him at the top of the hour. Stick with us, everyone.
Dad?
Hey, buddy.
How come we have a bunch of emergency food stashed in a basement?
Well, it's down there because there are things going on in the world that concern me that I think could potentially interrupt our food supply. And if that happens, I don't want us to starve.
You mean we could, go to the grocery and there wouldn't be anything in there?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
A lot of ways that could happen. And if it does, a bunch of people are going to starve. And it's my job to make sure that you don't.
Thanks, Dad.
And I don't want to starve either. And that's why we got food from the freeze-dry guy. It's the best long-term storage food you can get. And if it comes to that, we'll be ready.
Dad?
Yeah?
Some people say you're kind of a crackpot, but you make a lot of sense.
Well, thanks, I think.
Get your supply of the best long-term storage food available. Call 866-404-3663 or go to freezedryguide.com.
Who had the spirit of Antichrist. They are of the world, therefore speak they of the world, naturally. And the world heareth them because it recognizes its own language. But we are of God. He that knoweth God heareth us.
These are the words of 20th century prophet A.W. Tozer. He is the author of over 40 books that you aren't likely to find at your local Christian bookseller. So where can you go to find such inspiration? Introducing Cornerstone Books, with the largest selection available of the writings of A.W. Tozer, Amy Carmichael, Richard Wurmbrand, and countless others. Cornerstone Books makes the truth available worldwide with the detail and personality of a local bookseller. Visit the website at www.cornerstone-unlimited.com for a complete inventory of its authors, as well as audio files and much, much more. That's www.cornerstone-unlimited.com. Or you can call toll-free at 888-239-9890. That's 888-239-9890.
And now for a negative positive lesson from Life Change Tea. Feeling unhealthy, negative. The desire to be healthy, positive. Sugar and soft drinks, negative. Great tasting Life Change Tea, positive. In-laws, I'll take the fifth. Your spouse will buy this. I'm going to take the fifth again. Toxins and poisons, negative. Detoxing from toxins and poisons, positive. Biting dogs, negative. Life Change Tea can protect you from biting. Hey, wait a second. Who wrote this? Life Change Tea can't protect you from biting dogs, but it will flush those chemicals and toxins out of your body and help you lose weight. So order now. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Or you can call us at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. Life Change Tea may not fight biting dogs, but you're going to feel a whole lot better. That's getthetea.com.
The Micro Effect.
And to make sure nobody else gets out, I want roving death squads around the perimeter 24/7. I want 10,000 tough guys, and I want 10,000 soft guys to make the tough guys look tougher. And here's how I want them arranged. Tough, soft, soft, tough, soft, soft.
Stay tuned to the Micro Effect Broadcasting Network.
Sir, I'm afraid you've gone mad with power.
And welcome back, everybody. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, and the second hour of the broadcast, we have RUBEN URIARTE, UFO researcher, author. RUBEN URIARTE graduated from Cal State University at Haywood with a BA degree in Psychology and Latin American Studies, and has taken the MA courses in Public Administration. He has been a member of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, as a field investigator, state director of the Northern California Deputy Director of International Investigations and Activities. He was also a former research director for Beyond Boundaries, a company specializing in leading tour groups to various UFO hotspots to different parts of the world. He is a board member of OPUS, which is Organization for Paranormal and Support Understanding. He is involved with a large network of research organizations. YHOUR has been interviewed on many local and national radio shows and television documentaries on the subject of a UFO phenomenon, such as the Discovery Channel, the Learning Channel, and the History Channel's UFO Files and UFO Hunters. He is the MUFON liaison with MOIFON, which is the Organización Mexicana de Investigadores del Fenómeno OVNI, Mexico's coalition of UFO investigators. Ruben Urarte, welcome to the broadcast. We're so happy to have you with us.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much for having me on.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on this broadcast. And I guess you've had some new books come out. I believe the latest, if I hope I got this right, is The Other Roswell?
Oh, well, actually, that's one of the books that both my co-author and I have worked on. We have another book coming very shortly. If you go onto our website, which is www.roswellbooks.com, you'll see a number of books that we've already have written with a number of other authors as well. And we have a really interesting book. Just in case I lose you, Robert, this is my with this telephone here. I'll try to call you back on my cell phone.
Sure. And do you have the station number? So just in case I lose you.
Let's see here. Yes, I do.
Okay,
yes.
Terrific.
And just in case, I didn't realize my it already said low.
Well, you sound crystal clear to me.
Okay, well, I'll just keep talking then. But our next book, up-and-coming book, is basically titled Aliens in the Forest. It focuses on a historical case that happened back in 1964 up in the mountains in Northern California, where we had a gentleman, or a deer hunter, basically. He was hunting with his friends using the bow and arrow at that time, and he was looking for deer, and he basically went way far before it got too dark, so he decided to climb up a tree to avoid bears and mountain lions and that, and for his protection. So then he got very dark, and he saw a bright light, and he thought it was perhaps a helicopter that his friends might have summoned. They might have contacted the sheriff department, and helicopter was looking for him. So that's what he thought. He climbed down the tree. He lit several fires, and all of a sudden this light came over. It wasn't making any noise, and that really frightened him. And what it turned out to be was a spaceship. And the small scout ship landed, and these beings with a robot-like light creature came up and toward him, and he climbed back up on the tree, and he was hiding, but these beings came right up to him, and they were trying to capture him. So he had the book is about a 12-hour ordeal where he used his bow and arrow. He threw things at them. He did lots of things in order to avoid capture. And it's a true story. The gentleman's still alive. And we, both Noe and I, have focused a lot on historical cases, because many of the witnesses that we're finding are basically a treasure chest of information of what was going back in ufology back in those periods of time, which we feel that the truth is in the stories. Nowadays, it's much more harder to get accurate information because of the sophistication by these different agencies that are holding back information. So we are finding that the historical cases are so important for us to research.
Well, I agree with you. the things that the government have done to keep this technology from us. They've gone through these extraordinary lengths, and it's sad, it's disappointing, it's disgusting, it's so many things, words that I prefer not to use over the air. But
that's what we were finding in our both. Noe Torres, my co-author, and I have been working together on a number of different research projects. And hold on, please, for one moment. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's quite all right. I understand. These things do happen, and it is live radio, and it makes it all that much more interesting.
Yes. So anyway, as I was explaining, our first book that we wrote was called Mexico's Roswell. And the book focused on a object that collided with a small airplane over in the Chihuahuan Desert. And this object was being tracked by a number of military installations in the state of Texas. This object was flying about 2,000 miles an hour, and it veered into as it was going toward the Gulf of Mexico. It changed course and started flying along the border on the Mexican side. And so what happened was this object collided with a small airplane over in the Chihuahuan Desert, and there was a retrieval team from from the Mexican Army who went to find the airplane. They found the plane, but they also found the disc. So what happened was all this activity was being looked at by U.S. spy satellites, and all of a sudden there was a truck convoy that retrieved the airplane and the small disc the next day. And then all of a sudden the truck convoy stopped, and all the Mexican soldiers were dead.
Okay, now I know what you're talking about, because I've heard this. I've heard something very similar to this. So now I'm very familiar what you're talking about, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the United States Army actually found them?
Yes, with the reconnaissance aircraft, they flew over, and they saw all these dead bodies, and so there was a specialized retrieval team that flew out of Fort Bliss, a number of helicopters, which with one large helicopter known as the Sea Stallion, went into Mexican airspace and actually landed over the crash site. And they recovered the UFO, took it back, but at the same time, they basically did a quarantine. They destroyed all the bodies and the equipment. We think perhaps the reason why they did that is this one theory is perhaps the Mexican soldiers, may have come in contact with with a virus, basically, something biological. The reason why we think that may have happened is because in the documents that we found, this is based on a report called the Deneb Report, which talks about this actual retrieval. They mentioned that they went to Atlanta, Georgia, and our speculation is that the Center of Disease Control is basically headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, and just perhaps they may have taken part of the disc or maybe the entire disc to a special lab. And so this is basically another version of Mexico's Andromeda strain there, Robert.
And I'm very familiar with that movie.
Yeah, and so that what we found was a common thread of information. We began finding other crash retrievals information of other crashes along the Mexican-Texas border. And so we came across a very, very interesting story, which we titled The Other Roswell. of a UFO that was being followed by a fighter pilot who, back in 1955, his name is Colonel Willingham, which he's still alive today. He was flying with a group of B-47 bombers. He was flying escort in a F-86 fighter jet. That was one of the hot fighters back in the early 50s. And this object flew right over their flight group, made a 90-degree turn, and then it crashed on the other side of the Rio Grande River on the Mexican side, on the Mexican border there. Can you still hear me, Robert?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Oh, very good. Well, I'm going to keep talking until this battery wears out, then I'll call you back.
Okay.
So, but this object crashed, and he flew very low over the crash site, and he was running low on fuel, and he decided to fly back. Got permission to fly back to his base. He came back. He flew back several hours later in a small airplane with another friend of his who was a flight engineer. When he landed his small airplane along the riverbed, he got out, and as he walked up toward the wreckage, it was already cordoned off by Mexican soldiers. He spoke a little Spanish, but they told him that they were there, and they were waiting for someone from the United States Air Force to arrive. So he still had his flight suit, and he basically said, "Well, I'm from the United States Air Force," and he picked up a small piece of metal, and he put that in his pocket, and he had to fly back because it was already getting dark. But he observed the wreckage of the UFO broken into two parts. So this was a very interesting case. It showed us that there is some sort of relationship with the Mexican government officials over the years, and also that the United States particularly has a program in place to retrieve downed UFOs. And so this is we were quite surprised as we kept digging in. We kept finding that there were other cases. In fact, there was another crash retrieval case that happened in Laredo, Texas, which, by the way, my friend Noe Torres is going to be speaking at the Laredo UFO conference coming up this weekend on November 5th there in Laredo.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, and what's exciting about that is, Travis Walton's going to be there, and Noe's going to specifically, we'll be talking about the Laredo UFO crash where a UFO was shot down, Robert, by two F-80 shooting stars. Those are the types of early jets that were being flown during that period.
And Ruben, let me ask you something here. I mean, this all took place within within the same era between 47, 57, maybe early 60s?
Yes, this is what's fascinating about this in the area is that the Chihuahuan Desert is a vast desert that starts almost from north of Mexico City and stretches all the way through the upper northern states of Mexico into New Mexico and Texas. And what we found is that we're in that area, in that zone. That's where we've come across it, including the Roswell 1947 crash, along with the other crashes, all fall within that zone. And so we have some theories behind that.
Well, what amazes me is that so many crashes took place within a certain era, and this was all within the time frame of when the Nazi technology came here to the United States, of course under secret cover through the CIA, and created the atomic bomb, which then we started testing, and then of course the only country ever to use the atomic weapon against another human being. And this is when all the activity really ramped up and started. And that's what really amazes me. So I would say that, they're very well aware of what we did, what we created, and they're saying, okay, the kids found the matches. We better pay attention to what they're doing.
Oh, absolutely. What's also very interesting is during that period of time, we were just getting into the Cold War. Toward the end, our adversaries, that being the Russians, during that period of time. And one of the things that, as we're doing our research, is the primarily aviation focus. We began seeing, and there's been some research, I think Frank Ficino, you might have come across his book, Shoot 'Em Down.
As a matter of fact, I emailed him today because I'd like to get him on the show.
Oh, great. That would be great. He sent some specific focus on the dogfights or the air battles that were going on during that period of time, specifically during the 50s. But what we found interesting is the number of stories that were coming out by various fighter pilots who were, during that time, they were very much experienced. Many of them came out from World War II and also flew in Korea. And so these guys were very well-seasoned pilots. So the thing was that we found very interesting is, of course, there was a special order by the United States Air Force to shoot these UFOs down. And many of these fighter pilots that went up to do battle or intercept them never came back. In Frank Ficino's book, he indicates that there's probably more than 200 pilots that lost their lives. More pilots were lost shooting or chasing UFOs than the pilots that were lost during the Korean War. So that unique period. It was a very unique period there, Robert. And
that what you just brought up is very poignant to the fact that you never hear about this really. That so many pilots lost their lives chasing these craft, and it's not that they engaged in any kind of battle. It's simply that the craft, with their technology, were able to disable the aircraft. Would probably. Unwittingly knowing that they were doing that.
Yes. Also, to go back to that, to our other case, Mexico's Roswell, where the small UFO collided with an airplane. There was an incident that happened 8 months later, in May of 1975. Our event, the Mexico Roswell event, happened, or the crash over Coyame happened in around August of 1974. But in May 1975, there was this pilot by the name of Carlos de los Santos, who, a great guy, really is really is an individual that is so much. He's changed so much since his encounter with these UFOs, but he had shared with us that he was flying this small airplane. He was working for a company, and he was going to be dropping off some executives along the Pacific coast. And when on his flight back, he had 3 small discs. One, he felt like he was being watched, and then he looked over to his left, and there was this small disc, approximately about 12 feet in diameter, right above his wing. And then he looked over to on the other on the right side, and there was another disc. And then all of a sudden, he's looking forward, and he saw this disc coming right at him, and it just went underneath, and it hit the underneath the belly of the fuselage of his plane. And for 18 minutes, he had no control of his airplane, and he's yelling, "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday!" He's calling air traffic control to Mexico City. And what makes this case really quite unique is that we have the actual recording of him yelling "Mayday" and telling the air traffic controllers that he had unidentified objects that are surrounding his plane, and he has no control. And what also makes this case really quite unique is that the air traffic controllers were able to pick up the objects on their radar. So there was a significant amount of witnesses at the Mexican airport, in Mexico City's airport, as well as Carlos de los Santos' testimony, him being that close and seeing these things, that really, afterwards, it was like a big spiritual change for him. But the fact that these were small UFOs that surrounded his airplane, and this made the national media, and there was quite a bit of attention on this case. But the fact that it was it was a small disc that collided with the airplane in El Paso, and then we could tie that same relationship with the disc that happened with Carlos de los Santos. So what we try to do, Robert, is try to attach all the different segments of our research. And so it's been quite an exciting journey. We've been meeting a number of people over the years. I've made friends with a number of investigators from Mexico, and also through other in Latin America. And they're very dedicated, very hardworking, and there's a lot out there that we as the U.S. media we're starting to receive that information because of the language barrier. But I think now with the internet and the close communications, there's more that's being reported.
Well, I agree with you. There's a lot more being reported because the knowledge is at our fingertips now. Everybody's able to post information. And who knows how many family members of so many different UFO encounters actually are able to or have posted information on the internet, which now is so readily available that you can actually do the investigations where we actually never had that. As late back as what, the 90, I want to say 95, 96, where the internet hadn't really even taken off yet, but it was just really getting going. The exhaustive search that everyone in this field has painstakingly done to interview the people, the family members, and all other witnesses to the incidences that took place.
Yeah, Robert, you bring up a good point. I have files that go back to the 60s and 70s, and the way people used to communicate is through letters. Before the internet, it was all done with handwritten or typewritten letters. Remember the good old-fashioned carbon copies?
I'm old enough to know that.
Carbon copies, and I think, and then the way people used to disseminate information to their members as well as to the public was through newsletters and in magazines. So everything was written, and everything was documented through newsletters and correspondence. Of course, today now it's easy with the internet and getting on the computer, but back then it was amazing seeing these, and it's proved to be priceless, because this is material that you could hold in your hand and then reflect on what was going on back in that time, which, in a way, that was such a big help for us when we wrote our book, which will be coming out on the Cisco Grove, or the incident of the bow and arrow. They refer to it as the Cisco or bow and arrow incident, but the witness, his description, all the documentation was put together by the previous investigator, Mr. Paul Cerny, who was a member of NICAP, and then later he joined MUFON, or MUFON was formed, and then he became a MUFON investigator. But I was so honored having that file of all the information, his interview notes, his thoughts, everything, which we all tied that into the book. So I think once that book is out, you're going to see someone who basically fought off an attempted abduction, who was conscious, and the fact that what he used for his protection was primarily his bows and arrows. He used fire, because he had matches, and he would light the when he was climbing up the tree, as the beings were coming up to him, he would light the branches, break off branches, light them on fire, and throw them on the ground, and the beings would then sit back. And the thing that they had with them, they had a robot-like creature. And this robot would stick his hand or his finger into its mouth and emit a gas. And this gas would then float up toward where the gentleman was at. His name was Don. I'll go by his first name, Don.
Right.
And Don would pass out. And what saved him from being captured was as he fell, his bow caught him, blocked his body from falling down on the ground.
That's amazing.
He came to, and then he would climb up back on the tree, and he tied himself using his canteen belt. So he threw his money, he threw his canteen, he threw a number of other objects, and then he said that what really frightened the ETs was he would move the tree back and forth. You know, it was almost like they didn't know how to handle that. They didn't quite understand that.
that's actually
he would weigh that tree back and forth, you know, and he also said the description of these things were
Ruben, can we hold it right there? Because we're coming up on a break here real quick, because there's a bunch of questions I want to ask you, too. So everybody, stick with us. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, and you are listening to Ruben Uriarte, and we will be right back after this break.
Question. Have you noticed foods not really being all that healthy anymore? Have you noticed there is something going on that seems to be taking the nutrients out of our food? We seem to have a lot of genetically modified products, and it seems that sugar is added into everything that we eat. What if you could have something that was totally natural, and that if you drank it every day, your body would start to cleanse? You would feel better, you would have more energy, and you would watch your health change for the good. Well, there is such a product. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's heading America by storm. And if you have not tried this great tasting tea and see how it works, I would just ask you, what are you waiting for? Do yourself a favor. Order this tea and just try it. Here's how you get it. GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Or you can call us at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. Order now.
Concerned about the cost of quality water purification?
BerkeyWater.com.
Concerned about microorganisms in your water?
BerkeyWater.com.
Concerned about unknown chemicals in your water?
BerkeyWater.com.
Want information about water in the news?
BerkeyWater.com.
That's BerkeyWater.com. Or call 888-803-4438.
That's 888-803-4438.
Berkey, because the water you drink may not be as clean as you think.
Prisoner, rise and answer my question. Oh, crap.
Yeah, it's a little dark in here, ain't it, Clink, now that you've busted the light?
Where are you?
I'm right in front of you.
Now, where have you hidden the wax figurine of the Kaiser?
I've got no bloody idea what you did with your wax figurine, and I don't care.
You are the prisoner.
That's right, and as such, I expect some answers out of you. Now, where did you put my stash of freeze-dried food?
We, ate it.
You ate it?
It was quite good.
I'm sure it was. I'll have you know that was freeze-dried food from the freeze-dry guy. That food rehydrates faster, stores longer, is nutritionally superior to, and tastes better than any other long-term storage food available. Now, let me out of here.
If you could get us some more, perhaps we could negotiate.
Yeah, perhaps I'll just confiscate your keys, Klaus, and let myself out the front door.
But wait.
I'm busy. Get your own supply of delicious long-term storable food by dialing 866-404-3663 or visit freezedryguy.com.
Hello, fellow patriots. This is Big John Lipscomb. There are just two types of people in the world. Those that see the world outside of themselves and therefore can finally estimate the direction things like the economy, the government, and society is headed, and those that can't. The majority of the people in the world are absolutely clueless to the trends and manipulations that go on around our world. To them, everything is by chance and in disorder. As a result of this ignorance, these people are always caught by surprise when governments fail, wars begin, and economies collapse. Every day, with each choice, you define which group you are in. SurvivalistSeeds.com and PatriotFood.com for the rest of us, those of us that are prepared and wide awake.
The Micro Effect.
Hello, I'm Tom Hanks. The U.S. government has lost its credibility, so it's borrowing some of mine.
Stay tuned to the Micro Effect Broadcasting Network.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show, and I'm your host, Robert Pepino, and you've been listening to Ruben Uriarte, author, researcher, ufologist, and we have been talking about the spacecrafts that have entered our airspace, all within a certain era of time. This all happened to happen during the World War II era, when we had first created the nuclear weapons, and of course we were the only country to ever use them on another country, and the UFO activity really ramped up from then on. Many crashes during that time, retrievals took place. Of course, alien bodies were retrieved and never disclosed to the population of this country or any other country on this planet. And the reality is that the UFO phenomenon is very, very real. The cover-ups have been going on for a better part of more than 70 plus years. So many incredible people like Ruben who have put themselves out on a limb and the line to bring the truth forward to so many people. And let's face it, folks, a lot of people have lost their lives bringing this information forward, especially in the early years, because our governments feel that we are children and we cannot handle the truth or the reality, which is a complete falsehood and a lie. It is just to enrich themselves and profit for themselves, probably creating an off-world civilization, which I believe has already happened. But Ruben, here's the thing. The reality is that all the research that so many people have done, including yourself, a detailed, exhaustive research, leads to the fact that these things are no longer a question of if they exist or are they real. We all know they're real. If you ask most people in the world, they will tell you, even if they've never seen anything, that they believe that we have been visited by extraterrestrial beings. And I believe truly 100% in my heart that these extraterrestrial beings are malevolent in the fact that they really don't really see us as a threat, because their superiority in technology is so advanced that we could never pose a threat to them. They probably see us more as we would look at, an ant. Do we really care what an ant thinks or what it's doing? No, we would either simply accidentally step on it or choose not to step on it, but we would put no real thought behind it. And I think that where we are now, and I believe that we are really starting to go through a tremendous change, a frequency shift on this planet. You know, I'm sure you're very aware of the 2012 Mayan calendar ending, and it's not just the only calendar ending. The I Ching, and of course the Aztec, the Egyptian calendars are all coming to a period of ending with renewal into this new frequency shift, enlightenment. I can definitely say I feel that myself. I think they've been here as part of that reason also, because they, as advanced as they are, have the technology and the ability to see us as we have grown through time, and most likely we are probably ready now as a race to shift and transition into maybe a type 1 civilization. I truly hope that's the truth. Yep. And again, on the other flip side of that, what have we done? We've taken, however we could have managed at that time to take these crafts and these poor dead aliens at the time, to dissect them and do whatever they felt necessary. I mean, not us, the governments, to try and extrapolate some information. To me, is a complete waste of time and nonsense to do anything so barbaric as that. So this is the point I was trying to get into this the second hour of this show, Ruben.
Yes, Robert. I totally agree that throughout mankind's history, definitely there's been evidence that we've been visited. Of course, we now read an Errol von Daniken and Ancient Aliens that's on History Channel and a number of other programs. But the evidence has been there, and that's slowly uncovering, and we're seeing how much of an impact that's made, or they have made on us. The question is, who are they? Where do they come from? And are they the same group, the species? We're finding out that perhaps it's different groups that are out there that are doing a systematic surveillance of our planet. Then, of course, the big issue is how do we react to it? Our government, the various governments at hand, and also those particular groups that have an investment, a specific interest as to how they could utilize this technology for their own means. So perhaps the down UFOs, the study of the corpses of the aliens might have revealed some other science that, or may have helped improve our science, but at the same time, it's being used for an agenda of developing more weaponry. I've always remember what Stan Friedman used to say, and I've heard this before, but the country that knows and that can fly flying saucers basically can rule the world.
Well, and that was also true. I mean, when the Vril Society came about, I mean, they were creating these Nazi Bell craft or these Foo Fighters, and they had that technology. The unfortunate, well, not unfortunate, I mean, how everything unfolded and how it was taken down is yet to come to real light. The real answers of World War II. But I would say this, Ruben, that if Hitler was able to at that time use some sort of weaponry on these Bell craft, I think things would have went very differently for the whole world.
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting. You're talking about the Nazis that were brought over, Operation Paperclip. And
yes.
In our research, we devoted a whole chapter toward what we call Mexico's missile crisis, and it goes back to 1947, where the German scientists were brought over to teach our military personnel how to develop and improve missile weaponry, primarily advancing the V2 into further development. And in 1947, there was two incidents where these missiles were launched. I believe either in New Mexico or in Utah, and these missiles crashed into the outskirts of the city of Juarez. And there was a lot of publicity And so here we're launching V2s against our neighbor, what it comes down to.
Right.
But what happened was this was a big international embarrassment for the U.S., and so they went and retrieved the missiles, but then there were some other incidents of another missile that went astray and back in 1967, and another one close to the zone of silence in 1970 that actually carried some radioactive material. Well, on the outside, there was this, you mentioned earlier, and I believe about these different operations. There was Operation Moondust and Blue Fly, which primarily was the policy to try to recover satellites or weaponry or planes, anything that's really from the Russians or from the Chinese, Red Chinese, that we could use to study in their technology. And at the same time, this was used as a cover-up to go and retrieve down UFOs. So the fact that we may have launched a missile and it crashed into someone else's country, when in reality it could have been a down UFO, we just say, well, it's one of our planes, or it's one of our spy planes, or whatever. And that's usually the story, the veil that was used in order to cover up what was actually going on. So we found this, when we saw this interesting pattern, and it still goes on today, Robert, because I was in Mexico about 4 or 5 years ago. We were doing a documentary with the UFO hunters. We were doing an episode on crash retrievals.
Oh, yeah, Bill Burns, absolutely.
Bill Burns, yes. And they did a whole focus on our book, Mexico's Roswell, about the Coyame UFO crash. And we actually found an airplane, whether it or not it was the actual plane that collided with the object, we do not know, but it was similar to in the same vintage of that type of plane during that period of time. We found the wreckage and everything else, which was aired on the episode.
I remember that episode. I watched it.
Yes, and there was in that episode there was one part where we were in the Veracruz area of Mexico, down by the Gulf of Mexico, and apparently there was some debris that fell from the sky and landed on a nearby village, and turned out to be space debris. And the gentleman there, or the people that uncover it, that said, "Well, it definitely is space debris because it says it made in the USA." It was from a it could have been a satellite or whatever, but
right.
The fact is that it showed us how quickly the different response groups operate. The police did their investigation, then they immediately contacted the military, which goes up through Sedena, which is basically Mexico's version of the Pentagon. And they quickly would cordon off the area, and then from there they would make contact with U.S. authorities. We found this to be true in other cases of whenever there was something very unusual of a down UFO or even a sighting of a being, somehow or another, then both the militaries from both the United States and the country in that given country would be involved. And we have some specific other cases, but we see this pattern going over and over again. So whether or not, if it's for our own protection, why they're doing it, it's all up for speculation. But I think that as we continue this research, as you said, we might be uncovering something more than just a UFO, and it might open up a whole Pandora's box.
I certainly believe that, Ruben. you know, if the military-industrial complex has had this technology for this many number of years, and they've been able to back engineer some, even just a small part, let's say 10% of the technology, and of course you know the story of Colonel Philip Corso.
Yeah.
So I mean, the way he described it and what he put out into the public arena. Uh, what about the very exotic technology that are the paid shill scientists of the government have been able to back engineer and maybe create this off-world civilization that's already exists, which we are not privy to because of this, you know, the elite group, the money facilitators, the phony baloney money facilitators have been able to control this whole situation. So I mean, there's such a larger picture to all this. But I wanted to ask you another thing too. Was Jaime Maussan involved in that investigation at all in Mexico?
Which one? For the Mexico's Roswell?
Yes.
Initially, what was interesting was that we had got in contact with the local investigators there from the state of Chihuahua, and they were very much interested. See, what happened was, Robert, was the History Channel started doing a whole series of crash retrieval episodes, like the Russian Roswell, Texas Roswell.
Very familiar, yes.
I remember. So they started focusing on Brazil, for example. They started focusing on various countries, and the producer contacted me, and I got in contact. I had them get in contact with some of the people that I knew. And, of course, with Jaime Maussan. And Maussan actually had a crew that went out to that area, to Coyame, to interview people, see if they were aware of a down UFO. And, of course, many of them didn't know or weren't aware of the story. But what we found out was that the people that were there, I mean, no longer live there, or there's a lot of people moving either back to a different part of Mexico or actually moving into the United States. So it tells us that, the general population that was there, many of those people are no longer, or are gone. So we were very fortunate because we were able to find an individual that was able to share with us his experience, because he had everything documented in his notebook. This man lived in that area for many years, and we could trace back to an explosion that he overheard, a big explosion close to where the post-crash site had happened. And so these little nuggets that come up with going out there and doing field work are very, very valuable to us.
Yes. Well, I think it's valuable to everyone who should have an interest in this phenomenon. And, that's the wrong word to use, because it's not a phenomenon anymore. It's a reality. It exists. It's there. It's factual. I don't, and I'll tell you this, Ruben, I don't need a government official telling me that, disclosure, okay, yes, we are aware of UFOs. It's a bunch of nonsense, because they've had the technology now for the better part of 70 years. So, yeah. Some talking head coming out to saying we're disclosing information is a slap in the face.
Exactly. I think that this whole thing on disclosure, it's already been happening, and it's happening in different parts of the world. You have other military and government agencies that are opening up their files and working very closely with their local UFO organizations and sharing this information. And then you hear the contradictions. I'm amazed of the amount of testimony that's been coming out from various military from other countries, where they said, yes, they do exist. They have their testimony from their pilots. They have testimony but they don't have they're not ridiculed compared to what's been going on here, which has been part of the conditioning process over the years. But I think things are changing slowly there, Robert. Programs like yours, the fact that we have the internet, the fact that there are many people out there now that are very interested in this subject matter. Many of them that have had their own personal experiences, or their loved ones, or their family. The other factor is this whole awareness again. It's not if, it's just when, or or do they exist? We do know they exist. The evidence is out there.
Well, the evidence is overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely.
It's overwhelming, and I would say this, Ruben, that all the people who put their lives on the line, and I'll say this over and over, I commend them, I applaud them, and I would be right there with them, whether deceased or now. I would stand hand in hand with everyone in front of the gates of Area 51. And I don't know if you've ever listened to my broadcast before, but I had Bob Dean on, a wonderful, incredible man, and I consider him a very close friend of mine. And I told him I would stand at the gates of Area 51 and storm the place with 100,000 people, because the technology is there. We've been lied to for generations upon generations. The technology needs to come forward. We can no longer be dependent on this 120-year-old technology called the motor vehicle that follows with the even older technology of oil, which they turn into gasoline, and then the newest technology, which is at least 70 years old, which is is nuclear power. It's all a scam, a fraud, and a sham in order to keep us controlled through their fear structure, in order to create all the benefits and needs for these elites, their elitist ideas, and to leave us with nothing. And it culminates all to the same thing. We need to have these truths come forward and the technology released, whether through heavy-handedness or through conscious awareness and wisdom and spiritual enlightenment, which I would hope that would be the case, but I don't see it coming down that way. But the reality is that these monsters have had control of this for a long, long time, and I believe that's when they implemented their control structure at the hardest, when they gained this technology, this exotic technology, which did not belong to them, by the way, and they took. And again, there are very old proverbs. What you give is what you get. And I had talked about this with my guest earlier. The reality is, if you do not share with the rest of the world, then you're a taker. And we are human beings, and we are about giving and love, wisdom, peace, and light, Ruben.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rant.
But what you bring up, Robert, I mean, we see the consequences here. We could see where humanity can be improved in so many different ways. We don't need to have wars. We don't need to have children starve, and we don't need to have the resources that are being unwisely used. We're contaminating our planet. I just keep looking at different pictures of our world, and yeah, it's an oasis. So out there in this one planet, and it has so much to give, and I'm sure it has attracted interest from a lot of other outside groups. They're probably observing us and saying, "Gee, what are these people all about?"
Well, we have so much passion and love, and yet we can be so hateful and hurtful and destructive. It's such a duality. But Ruben, listen, we're running out of time here, and an hour is just too short. I would love to reschedule and have you back on this broadcast, because the subject is so large, so overwhelming, that there's so much more to explore. So I would love to reschedule you back on the program. So what I'll do is get a hold of Lauren and have her talk to you, and we'll reschedule a time when we can have a full 2 hours on this broadcast. How's that sound?
Oh, that sounds great, and perhaps I could also get my co-author, Noe Torres, on
Absolutely,
board.
I would love that. So give out your information real quick, because the music's coming up.
Oh, yeah, our website is www.roswellbooks.com, and we appreciate everyone's support, and please take a look at our website and go ahead and purchase those books on the topics. It helps us and helps our research.
Absolutely. Ruben, I want to thank you. I'll get a hold of Lauren. We'll have you rescheduled back on this program. Everybody, you've been listening to RUBEN URIARTE, author, researcher, and publisher, and he will be back on this broadcast. I want to thank everybody. This has been The Whole Agenda. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Good night.